Welcome, everybody. Today we are talking to Grace Lager, PhD. She is founder of the Speaker Spark and she is a communications expert. Welcome, Grace.
Hi, Kristen. Thank you so much for having me today.
Thank you for joining. Let's just jump right in.
Okay. But I appreciate you sending it to my email because I would rather do it on my laptop than on my phone.
Right?
I'm not a millennial or Gen Zer, so I don't do everything on my phone.
It's so funny. I hear that stuff a lot, like the millennials and the Gen Z and the Gen X, and
Yeah.
I'm just like, I don't get that. I don't understand that. I know it's sort of a generation thing, but it just goes in one ear and out the other.
What do you mean? What do you mean you don't understand it? What does that mean to you?
I don't really think about it. I don't
Mm,
think, oh, that's a Gen Xer.
yeah.
So I don't even know what that is.
I think about it a lot because being around college students,
Oh,
right? And then also having my own kids. So, you know, and I teach communication. So your communication preferences are very much rooted in your generation.
right? And the fact that I don't know what a Gen Xer is, educate me right now. What is a
Okay.
Gen Xer?
So, I mean, generations are usually determined by birth year, right?
Okay,
So, a
right?
Gen Xer, there's always some argument on the specific dates, but Gen Xers typically are born between 1965 and 1979, 1980, somewhere
Okay, so
there.
I'm smack in the middle of that.
Okay. So you're a Gen Xer. And so, as we were just talking about, your generation often influences how you prefer to communicate. So, Gen Xers typically prefer to do things on their computers, desktops, laptops, whatnot, compared to millennials who prefer to do things on their phones because they grew up. They were the first generation of digital, what we call a digital native, right? So they were born, so 1980 to 1995 approximately. So also generations have gotten shorter. They used to be 25 years, now they're about 15 years because technology changes are so fast now, so rapid.
Okay, say that little part
Okay.
again. It used to
So
be 20 years and now it's 15 years.
20 use generations used to be 25 years. So if we look at like the greatest generation, the silent generation, baby boomers, those generations are about 25 years. The millennial generation is about 15 years, so 1980 to 1995,
Oh,
because of the rapid rate of technological changes.
it's really interesting because when I hear generation, I think in terms of 100 years.
Oh, okay. No,
When you
right.
just said 15 years, that blew my mind.
Yeah. Yeah, that's way shorter than 100.
But I
Right.
get it because technology is moving so fast.
So fast, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. And so because of that, it's really interesting because then you have Gen Xers and millennials as parents of Gen Z, right?
My
Because
wheels are,
our
I'm making
ter-
a form in my mind going,
right.
oh, what? Oh, yeah, what?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So, I
What?
mean, my kids are Gen Z, but a lot of their parents are actually millennials because my husband and I had kids later,
Okay.
and we're also towards the end of our generation, right?
Okay.
But then there's millennials who would be like the early millennials that are probably only a few years younger than me. And if they had their kids early, some of their kids would. So it used to be very clear, right? Baby boomers had Gen Xers. The greatest generation had baby boomers. Like it was like that. Also because you had 25 years. But when a generation shrinks to only 15, you're going to have it gets a little messier, right? And
That's interesting.
it's super interesting. And I actually talk about this with my students, and it does come into my client work some, although I don't talk about it quite this nerdy academically. But it's really important to think about these things, especially in the workplace, to so that because a lot of times if we just default to our preferred communication, the way we prefer to communicate. And if somebody doesn't communicate in that same way, we often think, well, what's wrong with them? They're so rude, right? And there was a bunch of really interesting research done, especially when millennials started going into the workplace, because their generation was the first to grow up with technology at their fingertips, the digital natives. So they were communicating very differently in the workplace. And the boomers and Gen Xers, and we still had some of the greatest generation too in the workplace at that time when those very early millennials, they were just thinking like, what's going on, right? With these young people in the workplace. Why are they only texting me? Why won't they pick up a phone? Why won't they come talk to me face to face? And it seemed very rude. The millennials weren't being rude. That was just their preference. So putting some education, thought, and intention behind not only the way we communicate, but the way other people are communicating could really break down some of those barriers and alleviate a lot of problems.
I am finding interest right now around the word generation
Mm-hmm.
because I'm thinking about evolution
Mm-hmm.
and the word generation. It's like we're generating the new model,
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's interesting.
right? It's a
Yes.
generation, it's like the upgrade. So
I mean,
hopefully,
yeah, I guess it depends how you
hopefully,
look at it. For some people, it's an upgrade, right?
right? Um, that's really interesting. So my mom used to be much better with her cell phone
Mm,
than, and I'm gonna guess she's a baby boomer because I have heard that. But once it got
right.
into the X and the Y, is
Yeah.
there a Y and the
Why,
Z?
millennials were originally called Gen Y. So
Okay.
Gen Y and millennials, the same generation.
Okay. See, this is very confusing to
Yeah, it is
me.
confusing. Yeah,
I
sure.
was
Well, I just
born in
live in this.
1970, so I'm
Yeah.
like, what?
Right. Right. Yeah.
Um, yeah, but as she's gotten a little bit older, it's become
Mm-hmm.
even more problematic. Her phone is always in disarray, and
Mm,
she's always missing communications, can't
mm,
find things, and just literally hands me the phone
mm,
and just says, help,
mm-hmm.
you know?
Yes.
But I do miss the days of a wall phone where you were stuck there, sitting on the
Right.
kitchen counter, and you were present because that's all you were doing. You were having a
All you could do.
conversation.
And that's all you could do with that phone.
That's all you could
Like,
do with
that's
that
all you
phone.
could do with it, right?
Yeah,
Uh,
it was kind of nice actually.
it was, yeah, there's the simplicity to it. So
Yeah.
again, I think it just depends how you're looking at it, how you're framing it. I mean, there is also a massive convenience to literally having a computer in your hand. So if you're lost, you can get directions right away, right? So
Gosh,
that's a convenience you didn't.
I don't ever remember even using a map. I used to live by a map. I always had
Right,
one in my bag.
right, right, right. So it changes, right? So map reading skills, I'm assuming, I don't know the research on this, are probably quite diminished for younger generations. Because yes, we look at maps, but we have GPS telling us how to go through that map. Or maybe it's not even that they're diminished, it's just that they're different now. So how do we look at that? Do we look at that as diminished? Or are we looking at that as, okay, it's just a different skill that an older generation just doesn't have that skill now? They have a different kind of map reading skill, right? So I think this is where we get into the like, oh, like the nostalgia for the olden days, right? But
Yeah,
it's all about how we look at it. So yeah, maybe there was simplicity to a wall phone, but there's also some safety to having a phone on you that we didn't
yeah.
have, right? So
Oh
there's
yeah,
there's always pros and cons to the evolution, to use your word, right? Of
yeah. The
our
evolution,
technology advancements. And it's just how we use it and how we're framing that.
and it's not stopping.
No,
We're
it's not,
moving
no, and it's not
forward.
going
So
to.
as we're moving forward into
Mm-hmm.
this world where communication now is synthetic a lot of times with AI, right?
Mm-hmm. Right.
How do we maintain that crucial human connection
Mm-hmm.
in this environment moving forward? What do you think about that?
I think it's such a good question, and I think it's a really important one. Um, I have a lot of I like AI. I think there it can be used for a lot of good things. I think that again, it's how are we going to use it? It can be used for good or bad, right? I think the pitfalls of AI are just when you aren't intentional about your prompts, you're not intentional about how you're using it, and you just spit out the generic responses that you get. That's the part that people complain about, right? That's problematic. I think if we use AI to help us and we are still using our brains and we're using critical thought and critical thinking with it, then I think it's wonderful. You know, it's like when I don't know what to make for dinner and I can come home and say, hey, these are the things I have in my refrigerator. Help me come up with a 30-minute recipe. And it spits it out like that. Fantastic. You know, that's amazing. That's making my life easier. I think that's a great thing for AI, right?
That's a beautiful way to use it. I never even thought of that, but now
Right.
I'm like, hey, that's a good idea.
Right? Or
Yeah,
like, hey, my grocery budget for this week is $100 or whatever it is. Like you can only
right.
get three things at the grocery store and effort, but you know what I'm saying. And this is how I like to eat. Please help me create a meal plan for the week or whatever. Like that's amazing. I love that. As an educator, obviously what I don't like about it is when somebody says, "Oh, I have a speech to give in my class about this. Write a speech for me." That's because then you're not, then we're losing that human piece of it, right? And we're not using our brains. However, I think also we recognize, many people are recognizing that it's pretty obvious when we're letting artificial intelligence do the thinking for us. What I'm wondering, what I keep bringing up with my students is what AI does is it searches the information that's already out there, right? And pulls it. It just does it so rapidly. So if we're using AI to generate information, that's the information AI is going to pull from. So at some point, I don't even know how to explain it. It's almost like time travel. It kind of plays with my mind a little bit. Like at some point, isn't that just going to dumb down the information that we're getting from AI? Do you know what does that make sense? Like,
Yeah, because it's
yeah,
not actually, it's not creating, it's just referencing.
right. It's synthesizing what's already there. Now, of course, it's going to continue to evolve. That technology is going to continue to evolve. So I'm thinking about it as it is and in a static way. So it's curious to think about, okay, well, as it evolves, and that's where we need humans, right? So we need humans and our creativity and our thinking, and we need to think about, okay, how do we want to use AI so that it can maybe help us with our creative generation of ideas and those sorts of things. um, but we've got to keep that ability to critically think, right? We've got to keep that ability to be creative. We've got to be able to not just accept the first information that AI spits back to us. Even when I ask for a recipe, I rarely take the first thing it gives me. I'm like, no, 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 no. Or I'll be like, you gave me that last week. I want to give me a different recipe because it
Give me
will
a new
do
one.
that, you know? It will do that. And
That's
at first, I
cool.
used to be so nice. I'll be like, oh, that's so nice. Thank you. So now I'm like, what am I doing? No. you know? But I think it's also really important that we remember this as we're looking at like the curriculum that we build in schools, right? So making sure that we keep critical thinking in our school curriculum, that students are not only taught how to critically think, but they're encouraged to critically think and to ask questions, and that they're encouraged, even if the student comes up with something that maybe a teacher didn't think fit the assignment, But the students allowed that freedom to at least give an explanation of why they think that fits the assignment instead of just being shut down, right? That's really important. And then to be taught to teach our kids how to use AI ethically and how to use it in a way that's going to enhance our human thinking and our human creativity, not as a substitute for it.
What would you tell parents is a way to use AI ethically? What would be like
Mm,
a few points that you would share
yes.
with them on
Yeah.
how to navigate that? Because when I hear that, I think, okay, but what does that mean?
I know. And I don't know that I fully have a grasp on it. It still feels really new to me, right? And I see from both sides, right? As an educator and as a parent. So
Yeah.
I'm in it both ways. Um, so I think first of all, you as a parent, you have to educate yourself on it. You've got to get in there, you've got to learn it, you've got to understand it, play around with it. Again, and it can be ways that help you. So recipes, budgeting, whatever it is that helps you figure it out so that you understand the ways that it works. Also, so you can identify if your kids are using it, right? So I remember my son's in eighth grade, but when he was in sixth grade, he showed me this essay that he wrote, and I was able to immediately identify that he wrote it with AI. And he was shocked. He said, "How did you know that?" And I said, "Well, because no sixth grader writes like that, right? Like just the vocabulary.
Right.
And then the grammar and the I was just like, there's no, I didn't say like that to him, but I was like, there's no way a sixth grader wrote that, you know? And so he denied it at first, of course, as they do. And then he said, well, my teachers don't even know about this. And I said, I'm pretty sure they do. And I said, but okay. I said, look, you have two choices. You can rewrite it in your own words, and you can reference this as a source. That would be an ethical thing to do. Or you can turn it in as is, and then you deal with the consequences. Because at least my parenting style, I know every parent's different. Like I'm a big fan of natural consequences, and better for him to have a consequence in sixth grade, right, than in college or than in his career, where the stakes are so much higher. So he, of course, took the easy road and turned it in, and he got his hand slapped. And the teacher said, "You have to redo this. This is not your words." And he said, "You were right, mom," which is amazing when your kids say that, right? They never say that. And he redid it, and he tried one more time. He did it one more time, and then he got a demerit. So he got a little bit more, right? So the consequences got a little bit, anyway. So he learned his lesson. So I just went off on a tangent, but
No,
to
it's
to
perfect. I mean, that's
okay,
ideal. Like, that's exactly the information that is crucial.
right. But I
Yeah.
think that what I've noticed when I use it is that AI is now better too about giving you the sources that it's using to draw the information from. So that's wonderful because what that means is you can use it as a thought partner. So it's really no different than like doing a Google search or doing a Wikipedia search. You can use it like a search engine. And then you
Right.
can go look at those primary sources, right?
Right.
And so like if you're writing, for example, write down your own thoughts and then put it into AI and say like, "Hey, can you help me structure this in a more logical way? Or can you help me find the gaps in my reasoning? Or I need this kind of whatever." And then if it shoots something out, fine, then just pick at it, like push it harder. I need this, I need that. Don't ever just accept it at face value and follow those links to the sources so that you are educated. And your kids can do that. We don't give our kids enough credit for what they can learn and understand. And it's just a click of a mouse. And what a great way to teach them how to do ethical primary research.
Those are
So,
great tips
oh,
and a
thank
couple
you.
things I didn't even think of. I love the pushing it a little more and pushing it a little more,
Yeah.
asking the AI another question, another question, another
Mm-hmm.
question. Because,
Yes.
the kids, I have a child, he's 14.
Yeah. Yep.
and we unschool, so we're
Yeah.
familiar with natural consequences
Yes.
of life, right?
Right.
But
Life.
I haven't had to deal with writing a paper or anything
Mm,
like that because we don't really do that.
right.
But I do find that kids more and more, if left to their own devices, will be online, as all of us,
Yes, of
more and
course.
more. And it just reminds me so much of Ready Player One. Have you seen that movie?
Oh yeah, my son loves that movie. He's also 14.
Oh,
Yeah.
right.
Yeah.
Um, and I feel like we're kind of going in that direction
Mm, for sure.
where, even on some of the larger social media platforms, you can create like a little emoji
Mm-hmm.
face of yourself and animate it
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
and interact that way with people instead of
Yeah.
like with your own face,
Yeah.
which is, I don't know. I'm not a fan, but I know a lot of people love it.
Right.
And maybe it's the photographer in me, but I feel
Mm,
like there's so much communicated through
yes.
just the face and the eyes. And if you're going to put a mask over that, um,
Mm-hmm.
you're missing half of the communication and maybe more. Like how much of our communication is actually through our body language and our
Mm-hmm.
eyes and what we put on our face, how we move, how we sit, how we speak, all of those things, right?
Mm-hmm.
Which, if
Right.
you're interacting in an AI world with a avatar, that's the word I was looking
Yeah.
for. What is that?
Right. Right. No, you're right. A lot of our nonverbal communication is crucial. It is not as so there's something called the Moravian myth. I don't, so there's which is to combat this idea that there's some statistic out there that says like 95% of our communication is nonverbal. It's not quite that high. It is pretty significant, but really it's our nonverbal combined with our verbal, right? So when those two match, that's when we have the clearest communication, right? So if you're saying, yes, yes, I really want to do that. So I'm nodding and I'm saying yes. So that my nonverbal is reinforcing my verbal and vice versa. But if I were to shake my head and say, yes, I'll go with you, there's a different, which happens sometimes, right? So there's like a disconnect. And so then it creates some confusion for the receiver. The okay, the nonverbal's not matching the verbal. So what does the person really mean? Right? And it does happen. Or like if someone's like looking at their phone, that's another great one. Looking at their phone while you're talking to them and they're saying, I'm listening to you. They're not, right? They're not. They might think they are, but they're actually not. Like scientifically proven, our brains cannot multitask actually. They can't. We think we can multitask, but we cannot.
I
Um,
feel like
so
multitask. We can multitask in something that's very mindless, like having a
yes,
conversation while washing the dishes
yes,
or
exactly.
folding the laundry.
Yes, for sure. Something
But if
that's
you need to,
routine. Yeah,
yeah, but
right,
if you need to engage with
right.
mental capacity,
Hmm.
then
You
yeah.
can't. No, you can't. But to the point about the avatar, I mean, I don't know how you feel about your child, but like when it comes to like being online, even at 14, I am very protective of my son's face because anybody can grab that image and do what they want with it, right? So we have a rule like you cannot show your face online. You can't. He has YouTube channels, but he's not allowed to show his face. So in that respect, I like the avatar, right? Because then you don't have to show his face. It can be like a safety thing for younger kids, but also anybody. Like I think there's lots of people who feel vulnerable in that online space showing their actual face because people can grab their image and do what they want. They can manipulate it how they want. So again, but I also understand your point, right? They create some kind of a disconnect. So again, I think it's like the intention. What are you doing? What is your point of being in that online space? And if he's FaceTiming with somebody, obviously I know there's still ways to grab that image, but it's different, right? So yeah, it would be weird to have an avatar. But then sometimes people like it because they want to play with identities. So I think it just depends on the purpose of the interaction.
That's interesting. I guess, you know, it is sort of just another aspect of duality, really. Like
Right.
there's a good side and a bad side
Mm-hmm.
to
Yes.
everything, really. So, yeah, you can protect yourself,
Mm-hmm.
but you can also pretend to be something you're not.
Exactly. Yes. And that is very scary too.
Yes.
Right? Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. And especially, right, because you can be tricked very easily, or as the kids say, catfished. Right?
Catfished. Yes.
Yeah,
I only
catfish.
just recently figured out what that means. I'm like, what's going on here? I'm so not down with the lingo, but I'm getting there.
You're getting
Um,
there. Yeah.
I'm getting there, but like you said before, it's up to the parent to really get in there and use the
Mm-hmm.
technology and see what it's capable of and see how best to protect the child. And you can't do that if you don't know what you're dealing with.
Right. Right.
So
And
you have to know
you
first.
have to know, and it's like another full-time job. Sometimes it feels like,
Oh my God,
it's a lot.
it is a
Yeah.
lot.
Yeah.
It is a full time job. Um, but I think most of our communication right now is online. It's on social platforms, and
Mm-hmm.
especially for the children who,
Yeah.
in my particular world, are not in school.
Right. Right. Yeah.
You know,
So, yeah. I mean, what is that like for your child?
he definitely is online a lot,
Mm-hmm.
mostly on YouTube, though, I have to say,
Mm-hmm.
looking at how
Oh
to's.
yeah. Oh yeah.
YouTube's great for that and it's
Right.
fun and entertaining.
Mm-hmm.
Started his own YouTube channel,
Yeah.
faceless mostly.
Yeah.
Um, but also talking to friends
Mm-hmm.
has
Yeah.
become texting.
Mhm, right.
We all know how that goes,
Right.
right?
Yeah.
We're not entirely sure what, I don't feel like it today means. It could mean that they feel
Mhm.
sick, or it could mean that they don't actually like you, or it could mean
Yeah.
that they have something else going on. But all that inflection that would happen in an actual
Mhm.
conversation is missing
Missing.
completely.
Yeah. Right. I mean, I'm always on my son about like, you need to like be moving around and be active and he's like, "Mom, I'm playing on my VR." And I like can't argue with him because he is, but I don't think of it that way, right? I'm like, "No, I want you outside like riding your skateboard." And he's like, I know it's so weird. And I mean, I don't know about you, Kristen, but like for me, I really do enjoy face to face and in person. And so, I make a point to go to like in person networking meetings or set up time to meet with people or have lunch. And but also, some of that comes down to like, are you extroverted? Are you introverted? And there's all those things too. So my husband's very introverted. He loves the fact that he can just talk to people on a phone or just text them or just do Zoom. Like he loves it. And I'm just like, I want to be in the room with people. So I
Yeah,
mean, yeah.
I feel like I have both sides to me. There are occasions where I definitely just don't want to
Hmm.
go anywhere, and I'm very happy
Sure.
just to text people or send them a voice message.
Sure.
The voice messaging thing is great, I feel
Yes.
like, because you can actually hear the voice,
Yes.
you can get the inflection, but you still
Hmm.
don't have to talk to people.
Right. Right. And it gives them time to process too.
Yes.
Right. So I don't remember who I was talking to. It might have been in one of my classes, or I can't remember. I talked to a lot of people, but and we were having that conversation, like texting. One of the benefits of texting, they were saying, is that the other person has time to process, whereas in a conversation, you feel like you have to respond immediately. And so they were saying that they really like the voice text because, yes, you get all the nuance of a conversation, but you still have that processing time. And I thought that was a
Yeah,
good, interesting point.
that's beautiful point
Mm-hmm.
actually, and that's probably why I like it.
Yeah.
But sometimes, if you get a message and the other party takes a little too long
Yeah.
to process,
I know. Right. And you're like, what's
And you're
happening?
like, what is going on?
Yeah. Right. Or the voice message is too long. You're like, can you get to the point?
And you're like, oh my God, I gotta
Yeah.
listen to all this.
Right.
Ay, 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 they're
Yeah.
going
Yeah.
on.
Yeah.
It's really fascinating. What do you
Hmm.
think would be like an ideal communication platform, I guess?
Oh God.
In person
I
would be
mean,
number one, or maybe not. What
I
do you
don't,
think?
I just think people have different preferences. So
Mm,
I think it's hard. I just think it's hard to say like there's one ideal for everybody,
mm,
and just like you were saying, like sometimes you want to be in person and sometimes you don't. And I mean, even the most extroverted person in the world needs alone time. So, and even the most introverted person needs time interacting with other people, So I don't know. That's I hate to take the cop out way and say I don't know. I Yeah, I think it's a good
yeah,
question, and I would need some time to think about it. I think a little bit more.
process.
Yeah, I
Also,
need
voice
processing
message.
time. I need processing time. Uh, I don't think that we have one right now that's ideal, but I think one of the reasons for that is because we don't really get to control our communication on the platforms that we have, right? Like if you think about Facebook and, well, I don't know. I was gonna say Instagram, but they're owned by the same person.
Yeah, I mean,
TikTok.
let's
Yeah,
just talk about Facebook.
right?
I got many posts in the last week just banned, and they weren't even anything crazy. I was
Yeah,
like, "Oh,
your
say hi."
posts were banned.
Yeah,
Yours?
they were headshots of
What?
people on my photography page. You know
That's
what was
crazy.
really interesting to me about that is I restarted this photography page and I
Hmm.
was posting images to sort of populate the page, right?
Right.
But I hadn't followed anybody. It's a brand new page. I have a few people who I shot with followed. So when I go to the feed, it's just showing me other photographers.
Right.
And I was scrolling through and there was this woman in lingerie, which I'm
Yeah.
not opposed to boudoir, love it.
Right.
But she was like pulling this down
Uh.
and the bottom piece pulling that
Uh
aside,
huh.
and it was all shown.
And that wasn't banned.
That's
Is
what
that?
I'm
Yeah,
saying. Like,
that's your point. Yeah,
why was my
but
headshot
your headshot.
banned? Because it's literally a person head and shoulders smiling
Right.
with a jacket on.
Right. No, they're very professional and like,
I didn't
yeah.
understand, like, why are you
I
not
don't
going to
know.
recommend me because you don't like this content because it was marked as unsafe. And
I
that just
know.
goes to like, I don't know why it was automatically flagged,
Yeah.
but why was this very sexy
Hmm. Right.
photo not
Right.
flagged? It was very
I mean,
strange.
I don't know. I got put into Facebook jail after a speaking event because apparently I had too many likes. So I was put into Facebook jail for 3 days. That doesn't make any sense.
That does not make any sense. Yeah,
No
so
sense at all. So that's what I mean. I think, that's a problem with the platforms we have right now is that
yeah,
we are not in control of our information. We don't understand the rules. The rules are constantly changing on us, right?
yes,
And it feels like even we're playing a game that we don't understand. And I think it's intentional. I'm a little cynical. There's that Gen X coming out. I'm a little cynical about it, right? I feel like that it's intentional.
oh, I'm
So,
absolutely in that
right?
same camp with you. It's totally intentional. Yeah,
and but it feels like a necessary evil if you're in business. So that
yeah,
stinks, right?
yeah.
So what's an
An evil
ideal
monster.
platform? Right. It's like one where we could control our own information, but how do you do that on such a large scale? I don't know. Like that's how do you manage that and how do you create that and make it safe for people and you don't have things that are inappropriate for I yeah, I think that's
Yeah, it's
I
such
don't know how.
a conundrum.
Mhm.
a
Right.
true conundrum.
Right. So then that's when you're just like, well, can we just go back to the wall phone? Right?
Yes.
Because it was just simpler. We didn't have to worry about it.
And coffee after church.
Right. Right. I mean, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Um, I am not a very religious person. I'm a very
Yeah.
spiritual
Yeah.
person. So, but church coffee was just always, it's a weekly gathering
Right.
where you
Right.
can be face to face with people and just
Hmm.
say hi and have a cup of coffee.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's kind of how I feel about like Girl Boss,
Yes,
right?
absolutely.
It's
Yeah.
my church. I mean, it does have that feeling, right? It's like community. You go have coffee with somebody after.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like the networking meetings and stuff.
Mm.
And I actually am starting a Sunday morning meditation in the garden.
Oh, oh, nice.
So I'm
Uh,
excited. And I
and you're
invite,
like, it's just you, or what do you mean? Like, tell me more about that.
it's a gathering for
Hmm.
Sunday mornings at 8 to 9
Okay.
in the garden at Tradition School of Herbal Medicine. I don't know if you've
Ah,
been there, but it's
I have
very
not.
cool. It's a
That's very
it's an
cool.
herb garden, actually. It's
Yeah.
a medicinal garden, so all the plants
Oh,
are medicine.
yeah.
And there's a big circle fire pit,
Mm,
and we just sit there. And we're going to be doing a meditation series. This month I'm
hmm.
just getting started,
Yeah.
but each month we will have a theme.
Mm. That sounds lovely.
Yeah,
Are
a
you
little.
advertising this anywhere?
I just started advertising
Okay.
it. Yeah,
Okay.
just started, but I will start making all the posts and actually possibly even use AI to map out my 12 months
There you go.
in
There
a
you go.
hierarchy, at least to
Yeah.
start,
Yeah.
and then I'll figure out what I want to do with the themes.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. I probably don't even need that, but I just want to see what it says.
Sometimes it helps to just get you started though.
It does.
Instead of staring at a blank page or a blank calendar.
Yeah.
Right. And then you could be like, no, I don't like that.
Okay, so
Change
right
this or what.
behind me, I have my book.
Yeah.
I can
I
point
see
to it.
it.
And AI did not write that. And you will know because it's a mess. But it took years to get it out.
Mm, yeah.
And I think, I don't think that AI could have helped do that
Right.
because it was a very personal
Right.
thing. So I know a lot, I see advertisements a lot
Mm,
for AI, like getting AI
hmm.
to write a book and then you sell it.
Right.
And I'm baffled by that.
Well, I mean, I think also depends on what the subject is. But
Yeah.
again, my
This
understanding of those programs is it's not just like, hey, write a book about blah. It is there is a lot of back and forth, and you still have to contribute something as the author. Like you have to give AI something,
right.
right? And I think that the more personal your story is, or the more personal what you're writing about, obviously, the less you can rely
Dig
on that.
into it. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. And
Yeah.
I
No,
think also like if a book is totally written by AI, people are going to realize that, and it's not going to be good, you
I don't
know?
know. Sometimes I look at, and maybe it's the older generation, you
Mm-hmm.
know, the newer people know, like my
Mm-hmm.
child would probably know if it was
Mm-hmm.
computer generated very
Mm-hmm.
easily. But my
True.
mom,
Yeah. No, she wouldn't.
oh,
Yeah.
she gets fooled every time.
Oh,
Like, mom, that's not real.
right.
That was computer generated. Even the imagery,
Sure.
and the images are so spectacular.
They're amazing.
Yeah,
They're
been
amazing.
watching it for a long time too.
Well, yeah. I mean, there's
So,
started with like, I mean, I'm sure there was things before that, but like Photoshop, right?
oh yeah,
Right. So, yeah, no, I mean, it makes sense. Yes. Because again, so generationally, right? It's not a skill that generation would have because they didn't need to have it. They didn't grow up with it. It wasn't right. I mean, I'm going to say, like, I have handed my phone to my son before and been like, do this for me. Not because I can't figure it out, but he can figure it out so much faster,
faster. Yeah,
you know?
yeah.
So
They're
I
they're
can't
like
really judge your mom
integrated.
too harshly because I done it before, you know?
Yeah,
Yeah.
Yeah, I feel like they're they're so integrated. And okay, what do you
Yeah.
think about Neuralink?
I don't know. I don't know that I know enough about it to have an opinion. What do you think about it?
I think that we're bypassing, I think it's a bypass to the the creative divinity
Mm.
that humanity is.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And it's going to short circuit in there somewhere and kill the vibe, I would
Yeah.
say.
Yeah.
Kill the creative vibe.
Yeah.
That's my thought. That's my real thought on it. Although I
Yeah.
can see where, um, just like every other piece of technology, it would be really useful
Mm-hmm.
to just be integrated
Right.
completely. So you don't need your phone to figure out where you're going. It's just
Right.
like dropping
It's just,
in
yeah.
on your eyeballs, right?
Right.
Yeah,
Wasn't
that's
there a movie like in the 90s or early 2000s that about where they did that? Oh, I think it had Tom Cruise in it. Can't remember what the name of
Tom
the
Cruise.
movie was. I mean, he's in every movie from then,
Yeah, I feel like I know
right?
what you're talking about. Yeah,
Something like that. Yeah.
I
I
kind of
don't
want to
know.
Google it.
I know. I know.
Speaking
There
of
was
AI,
something about there. It was like something they plugged into their heads or like a chip or something, but it had something to do with the eyes, I feel like.
yes,
Yeah. 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 I know. But yeah, but see, with stuff like that, then I also wonder if we're like, when we get to a point where we realize and then we'll pull back or we'll shift. Like, I hope so. You
I
know,
have a feeling that we're going to have two camps. It'll be the Neuralinked camp,
yeah.
who is fully integrated, and it'll be the meditators in the garden
Right.
or with Kristen. Be like, no, we're just going to listen to the
Right.
birds.
It feels very matrixy,
Yes,
right? The red pill or the blue pill, or those the colors of the pills, whatever they were. Yeah.
yes, they were red and blue.
Yeah.
It does feel like that.
Hmm.
And how, okay, when we move even more forward, which we are moving forward, how does the Neuralink camp
Hmm.
communicate with
Right.
the unlinked?
Right. Right. Yeah.
What does that look like?
It's so interesting. Yeah.
Right? Is that going to be civil or is it going to be a shit show?
Well, given the way things are right now, I sadly don't have a lot of hope for civility.
Yeah, interesting.
I hope
Um,
you do. I'm not in a good place with that at the moment. I'm just going to be honest.
I don't think
Yeah.
anybody is.
Yeah.
It's scary out there right now,
Yeah.
and the ability to communicate fear too,
Hmm.
or like being in fear, I feel like is a big thing right now with a lot of people. You can
Hmm.
tap into the collective and really feel it. It's
Right.
intense.
It's very tense. Yeah.
Um, and I guess showing up on social media in a way that makes everything look happy and everything's
Hmm.
okay is a miscommunication
It is. It.
because
Hmm.
it's not okay and things are
Right.
crazy right now.
Right. But
And
there's
we have to
also such
keep
a
our shit up.
huge, right. Because there's such a huge risk, though, to showing up in any other way in that space. Do you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
right. Hmm.
So I guess that comes back to, um, you know, coffee hour
Right.
and face to
Face.
face
Yes.
and allowing ourselves to be vulnerable.
Hmm.
But I think the vulnerability on social media will probably be exploited
Hmm.
or deleted.
Yeah. Yeah.
Those are your two options there
Hmm.
because, fear is a mover for sure.
It's very
And if
compelling.
yeah, if the
Yeah.
powers that be can use it against the masses, then they will.
I think they already are.
Oh yeah.
I think they, yeah. I
Yeah.
think it's
So
the
if
number one tactic. Yeah.
I noticed actually, I posted something, I think it was Instagram. I'm not sure what it was actually, but I was selecting the thumbnail, right?
Hmm. Right.
And I chose a thumbnail where my face was not so cute.
Yeah.
Like I was like,
Right.
it got the most traction.
Love it. Well, you stopped the scroll because it was unexpected, right?
Yeah. And I
Yeah.
just think that's scary
Hmm.
that people are attracted to tragedy.
Or they wanted to see, like, yeah, they wanted to see what's that about. They are. It's. I had a professor who used to call it the potato bug theory.
The what?
Potato bug theory.
Oh, what's this?
It's like the train wreck. It's like something so horrifying you can't not look at it.
Right.
I don't know. I've never seen a potato bug, but I guess they're gross. I guess it's gross.
Never
So
seen one either.
I know. I don't know. So that's what it. Not that your face was gross, but it's like,
Yeah.
oh, that is really unusual. I have to stop and look and see what that is. Right. That's why people like rubberneck when there's an accident on the other side of the highway. Right. Yeah. I know. Drives
Like,
me
what are you
crazy.
looking
Why?
at?
I know. What are you?
Why?
Why? Right? Why do you want to see the
Yes.
carnage? Yes, I'm with
Why?
you on
If
that. It just drives
you
me
want to
crazy.
see carnage, go watch Game of Thrones.
I know. There's plenty of stuff on TV for that, right? Exactly. So,
Yeah.
yeah,
Um, yeah, but I feel like it's a tragedy in a way that people are drawn more to tragedy
yeah,
than they are to beauty and peace and
hmm
kindness.
yes.
And how do we shift that? How can we shift that with our communication? We could use like a little
Mm-hmm.
clickbait, a little,
Mm-hmm.
and then it's
Right,
all love.
right.
Behind the
Yeah. Well,
thumbnail,
why
it's all
not?
love,
Well, why not? I mean, people do it all the time, right?
right?
They like, what did they do? They're like, they'll say just crazy hooks, right? Like, I was at the hospital last night. And then you're like, oh my God. And then you're like, delivering cupcakes to the nurses station.
I think that's the way. I feel like we have to crack open the door and let some light
Hmm.
in there.
Yeah, it is the way, right?
We're
I
gonna have to
mean,
choose a really good thumbnail for this.
let's make a weird face.
Make your faces now.
I know. Like, oh my God. I love it. But no, it's I think it's like you were asking about like the communication, it's like take the high road. It's hard, it sucks, it's a slower burn, but you don't meet nasty communication with nasty communication. You you just you take the high road always. And it does pay off, right? Because it's just like if somebody is saying negative things about you, especially if you're not in the room, but you are always positive, kind, loving, and your communication, you don't even have to say anything about that person. Then when they say those things about you, there's no credibility, right? And people are going to think that that other person is nuts and think like, what are they talking about? No, I've never known Kristen to do those things, say those things. That's not my experience with her. I've never seen her post anything like that. So take the higher. It's not easy. It's not an easy road.
Yeah,
And I'm speaking from experience. Like the high road is not easy, and it can take a lot of energy, but it's always worth it in the end.
that reminds me of, just in relationships, and this is going
Mm-hmm.
on a different tangent, you know, narcissistic.
Mm-hmm.
How often have you heard this? It's like rampant and possibly overused, but somewhere out there, there are people in these extremely abusive
Mm-hmm.
relationships, and their communication gets manipulated and
Sure.
shut down,
Sure.
and it's traumatic.
Yes.
So how does one navigate
Right.
a situation like that?
Yeah. Well, I'm obviously not talking about if you're in danger or being abused. That's manipulated. So, right. Thank you for bringing that up. That's your safety is always should always be foremost. Those situations are super tough because if somebody's in a relationship of that way, they're usually isolated, right? They're cut off and they don't have the freedom to communicate with other people, right? So I think it's up to those of us who are on the outside of those relationships to trust our instincts. And if we think something is off, to trust that and to try to help the person who's being abused the best way that we can while keeping them safe. Because when they try to leave or exit those relationships, that's when they're in the at the most risk, literally, for their lives. And it's really tricky. There's no right way or wrong way, but there most communities have resources. So reaching out to community resources and saying I'm a concerned citizen, how can I help this person? But no, I definitely don't mean if somebody's abusing you, you should just take the high road and let them. No, so I'm sorry. No, that's not what I meant at all. I just,
Yeah, but in those
but
situations, because a lot of people do find themselves in those situations. So, what if
hmm
and maybe it's a mild case, like you have a
yeah,
friend who's maybe they're saying something not behind your back, maybe they're
yeah,
saying it right to your face. And how would you navigate that while staying like grounded? Maybe you want to lash out at them and be like,
yeah.
I didn't say that. You just take a
I
deep breath
know.
first and calm yourself and keep
hmm
still being kind.
I think you take a deep breath. You don't respond in the moment. That's the number one thing. You don't respond in the moment, right? You get out of that person's presence as soon as possible, or if it's they're texting you, you just stop responding and you set up some boundaries, right? And if that's a so-called friend, that's not your friend. So you if you if at all possible you end the relationship and you don't if somebody's treating you that way, you and again, I know this is I know from personal experience. Okay, so I'm not just saying this. This is harder said than done. And it can sometimes take multiple tries to get all of that. But you have to set some boundaries. If you can get out of the relationship, end it. Go rely on the people who love you and treat you with the respect that you deserve and don't talk to you like that. Let them know what's happening and keep telling people until somebody believes you. Because the person who's treating you that way is probably also gaslighting you, right? And making you doubt yourself. So keep talking until you find somebody who's going to validate you and say, yeah, I've noticed that. And here's what I saw. And I am absolutely 100% speaking from personal experience. And it took me 40 years, 40 years,
40
40
years.
years.
Girl, do you
Yeah.
feel comfortable telling a little bit about that story?
I can tell a little bit about it. It was a family member and somebody a very close family member, and it took me 4 years to actually realize what had happened. And I have no cousins, I have no siblings, and I had to turn to a high school friend to actually get that validation because nobody else could tell me, and I had been gaslighted for so long and so severely that I literally doubted every memory that I had and it started with therapy, right? And then I had to spend some really intensive time with this friend and just really try. I mean, luckily we have a very deep friendship and deep connection. And she validated everything that I asked her about. And it was very freeing. It was, I mean, there's pain involved too, like that separating and that coming to the realization there's pain in that as well. But it was also freeing and to know that I wasn't making it up in my head, right? And that that was actually what was happening. And then my own personal confidence grew and my sense of self worth grew. And then I looked back on all these other experiences that I had had, and just kind of all the pieces start to fall into place. You know what I mean? And so in that way, it was beautiful, but it wasn't easy, and it took a long time. And I still have to rely on that friend and some other friends, who know the story more intimately, because it still rears up from time to time. So that's the other thing I think too. It's not just a like one and done situation, you know. So if you're in that situation and you think something's wrong, trust your own instincts too. I think that as women, we have such strong instincts. We know, but we're taught to ignore them, right? Right, Kristen? I
So
know you,
true.
right? We are taught to ignore them, silence them. Don't, don't. I'd love to hear what you have to say about that.
When you're in a relationship that is a gaslighting relationship,
Hmm.
like you're describing, and you're doubting yourself,
Hmm.
how, like, you probably have the radar now that you
Oh
didn't have,
yeah.
right?
Oh yeah.
You're probably like, ding, 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 ding. Oh,
Yep.
no, no, no,
Yep.
no, 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 right?
Yes.
But you probably didn't have that then, as I know
Hmm.
I didn't. I have a similar experience. What would you say, like, how do you spot a manipulative
Mm.
communication from somebody? What would you tell somebody
Oh.
to be able to spot that? Because for me, I feel like it might be a feeling going to that
Hmm.
intuition. It just
Hmm.
lands kind of weird, like, ooh,
Hmm.
what was that? Even if it's so subtle, because usually that's
Yeah.
how it starts.
Yes. I mean, that's why I was like, oh, when you ask that, because it is a feeling, right? And it does start so subtly. And what I find, and I have to stop myself from beating myself up about this, is that initially I'm usually attracted to that person, like not romantically, but I'm like, ooh, I want to be friends with that person. Oh, like because it is abusive, right? And so it's no different than somebody who's physically abusive, and they're usually very charismatic and charming in the beginning, right? And it's attractive. You want to be around that person. So I find so what I'm learning, because I'm still learning, is that if I have this really strong instantaneous pull to like I want to be around this person, I want to be around them all the time, to me that's usually a red flag. Not and it sometimes it's fine, but to just maybe slow it down a little and not just go all in so fast. Because
Mm,
usually relationships take time to build and trust takes time to build, right? And if I
yeah,
want to trust somebody so quickly, so fast, that's not a normal way that we build a relationship. So it's me falling back into a pattern. Not that that's my fault, right? But that was a mechanism that was there to protect me when I needed it. That doesn't serve me anymore, but it's a familiar, so it's easy for me to fall back into it. And because the person who did that to me was somebody did depend on for my survival, I think that's why it's so attractive to me, right? Because it taps into that childhood need,
yeah.
right?
Primal. Yeah, that's
Primal,
primal
exactly.
survival.
And then so I'm learning to be more cautious about that and to trust better when, like you're saying, like when things don't land quite right, to trust myself instead of thinking I'm wrong and doubting myself.
Yeah. Um, I'm thinking this goes way back to when we were talking about texting
Hmm.
and the inflections, because you
Yes.
could be in a conversation where, let's just say, someone says, "Oh, Grace, I like your glasses,"
Hmm.
but they don't say it exactly like that,
Right.
and they don't mean that at all,
Right.
and they're actually being undercutting and nasty
Hmm.
with a very, like, mask of kindness
Yes. Yes.
that, if you're not listening to those feelings,
Mm-hmm.
you might miss it altogether. And that's where, texting and voice messages and
Mm-hmm.
all this online communication is just completely um, not good enough.
Right. So definitely don't trust somebody that you only have an online relationship with. Like,
Right.
you know what I mean? Like, don't trust them to where like you're giving them money or
Oh,
telling them where you live and like things like. I mean, I know it sounds ridiculous,
it
but
sounds ridiculous, but I actually know somebody who met all of their people
yeah.
online from other
Mm,
countries, and they
yeah.
invited them to this country to live with them.
Oh gosh.
And having never met them, and they sort of created this crazy fantasy that
Yeah.
this was a long lost family member. I'm like, you don't even know if
Wow.
that person is the picture that they're putting on.
Right. Right.
And you've
Right.
invited
Exactly.
them to come into this country and live in your home? What?
Right.
What?
Right. Yeah.
That's
It's
crazy. But
yeah.
this actually happens.
Yes. It
And
does.
it's yeah, that's I feel like that's an extreme case, but maybe
Mm-hmm.
it's more prevalent than I think.
I would think, right. And unfortunately, it's usually the people who are kind, and loving, and trusting, right? And they
Yeah.
are doing that from such a wonderful, caring place in their heart. And that is what I think is just so ugh, about it. Because then on the other, a person on the other side is just taking advantage of that, and it's just so icky, right?
Yeah,
So yeah,
that
just
brings me
trust
to
your
another.
instincts.
Go ahead. Trust
No,
your
I say
instinct.
just trust your instinct. And if you have learned to silence them, get back in touch with them. Just you probably talk about that better than I can. Like that's something with my kids I'm very clear about with them. I'm just always like, if you have a weird feeling in your body anywhere but somebody gives you, I don't care. I don't care if it's your aunt or your uncle. You honor that. You listen to that. I don't care what it is. I don't care if you think you shouldn't have it. You trust it. I'd rather you like walk away from somebody for no reason than not and get hurt, you know?
Oof,
So,
for real. I feel
yeah,
like that's such an important thing to tell your children.
so important. But
And
I also think we got to tell our girlfriends that too, our adult girlfriends.
yes, and
We have
support
to.
each other
Yes.
in letting the voices out. Um,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, I know
Yeah.
that I was always told, "Oh, he's just a
Mm-hmm.
man. Oh,
Yeah.
he's just a
Yeah.
man."
It's fine. What are you
Yeah,
talking about? You're being silly.
it's just nothing. It
Yeah.
was a joke.
Oh, that's the best one. It was a joke. Where's your sense of humor? You
Yeah.
got to relax a little.
And truly, and roasting is a thing these
I
days,
know.
and
Mm-hmm.
it's literally roasting. You're popping them on the spigot and putting them over the fire,
I
and
know.
I don't know. I don't know
I
how I
don't
feel
either.
about it.
I don't either. I
Will
don't. I
Smith
can't.
feels so good about it.
I
I'm just saying.
can't watch them. I can't watch them. I don't. Yeah. I don't like it. I have to say I
Yeah,
don't like it. Yeah.
because behind the joke is a truth.
Right. Right.
That's what
Exactly.
makes it funny.
Hmm.
That's what
Yeah.
makes comedy so funny is it's
Right.
based on truth.
Exactly.
It's like this
Exactly. Right.
the hidden dark side that none of us really want to see.
Oh my gosh. This was a bazillion years ago before I had children. My husband and I were living in Atlanta and we went to see Jerry Seinfeld. You know, he was on tour doing his stand up. I'm hilarious. It was an amazing show. But this woman I was sitting next to, after every single joke, that's so true. I was like, finally, I like looked at her because it was so annoying. Like it like
Right,
ruined every joke. And I finally
right.
looked at her and I was like, it wouldn't be funny if it wasn't true. She had no idea. She just looked at me like I was crazy. I was like, stop saying it's so true.
Right? And I feel like that's what the a manipulator of words will do is they'll say
Right.
something like as a joke.
Yes.
And
100%.
right? It starts
Yes.
out as, "Oh, it's just a cute funny joke.
Mm-hmm.
You have
Right.
no sense of humor." And before
Mm-hmm.
you know it, you're in freaking lockdown somewhere.
Right.
You're not allowed to speak a sentence.
Hmm. Right.
Yeah, it can be scary. How
Mhm.
do we maintain our humor? I mean, I guess you can make fun of yourself.
Self-deprecation is always great. Yep. Well, that's what I tell my public speaking clients, when they're like, "Oh, what if I mess up?" or what, I'm like, "Oh, just make fun of yourself and then move on. Like, it's fine. People love it when you're self-deprecating." But I mean, if we're talking about situations like this, like that's a little different, And I think too, this just cuts so deeply for women because it's something that has been used to keep women oppressed, right? I mean, it's one of the first things that's leveraged at anybody who identifies as a feminist, right? It's like, oh, feminists, they are so humorless and they can't ever take a joke when we're talking about completely sexist, misogynistic jokes, right? I mean, the same thing with people of color,
Yep,
right? Like,
same.
it's an excuse to be racist, to like package it as a joke. So, I mean, I get into this argument with my 14-year-old quite a bit, you know, because he hates it when I watch stuff with him because I will point out all the racism, the sexism, and I just feel like that's my duty as his mother
Yes,
to
I
do
do
this.
that too, and yeah, I get in trouble a lot. Like, oh, it's just
Yeah,
supposed to be funny. I'm like, yeah,
right.
but at what price?
But at what price, right? I'm like, and if you're hearing this repeatedly across platforms, across shows, across movies, eventually that just becomes normalized. And then it's not funny anymore. That's just becomes our
Desensitized.
worldview, right? I don't have a great answer for that because I haven't found the answer really of how to respond to it, except that, I don't know, that it's not funny. It's
Yeah,
at somebody's expense. It is at somebody's expense. And that a person of when the person who's saying it is in a position of power or privilege and then it's at the expense of a person or a group who's not, that takes the humor out of it, except for the people who are in that elite group.
right.
And that's not a great comeback. I realize it's not an effective response usually. So yeah, I don't know. I'm still working on that one because it's hard.
It is.
It's hard to combat that.
It is. It's not an easy navigation.
Mm.
Yeah, for a very long time, I was very not funny.
Yeah, same, same.
Right?
Yeah,
Because it just wasn't funny. And I
yeah,
was like, wow, all of these little silly jokes are
hmm,
actually quite mean
yeah.
and not funny at all.
Funny.
Yeah, I think the power dynamic does have a lot to do with it, like you said,
Mm-hmm.
which I think is why what happens with, I guess, Will Smith and Jada Pinkett
Hmm.
Smith at that award show
Yeah,
was shocking
right.
because honestly, it wasn't a horrible reaction, but they were on the same playing field,
Yeah, yeah.
right?
Mm-hmm.
They're all on the same level.
Mm-hmm.
So the
Yes,
power dynamic was not a factor.
right,
You know, if you're showing up to that show, you know you're going to get ripped on.
right,
They
right,
do.
right.
That's what they
That's
do. So
right,
you
right.
know you're showing up for you know it's happening, and then to have that reaction. But if you're in a position like maybe you're at work and your boss says something,
Mm-hmm.
or right
Mm-hmm.
now what? Now that's abusive.
Exactly.
You didn't
And
ask for
right.
it. You're not showing up for that. It's not kind.
And you don't have any recourse,
Yeah.
especially if you're at work, where
Yeah.
you can't tell your boss off. If you
No.
go complain to human resources, they're gonna know, right?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Not good.
Mm-mm. No.
Yeah, the navigation around all of that is really interesting. And it all comes back to what we say and what we don't say, our body language,
Exactly.
right? That communication. Oh, one of the questions that I had for you was,
Yeah.
is that relationship manipulation that you were
Hmm.
speaking of, the family member that it took you so long to figure out, is that part of the reason that you got into communication?
I think it is. So I got into communication before I ever figured it out. like long,
Oh,
long before I figured it out. I mean, I've been in communication for over 20 years.
well,
So, but I think it is because I think that I never felt like I had a voice and I never felt like I could be authentic or be myself. And so, and that is really the mission of why I want to, what I do with other women, right? When I'm working with them is really helping them find their voice in an authentic way. So yeah, absolutely. I don't think it's surprising that I gravitated towards that. It's very insightful of you.
yeah. It's interesting to me how people get into what they do
Mhm.
and what brought them onto that path.
Mhm.
Because I feel like in order to do anything very well, you have to see both sides.
Absolutely.
There's a
Yeah.
positive and a negative to all the sides. And if you don't know the negative side, you
Right.
probably can't help somebody if you don't really embody the wisdom of that.
Mhm.
So
Right.
most people in whatever realm they work, they
Mhm.
usually have a, a deep embodiment of the the dark side of whatever that is,
Right. Right.
right?
Yes. Mhm.
Going
Yeah.
back to Photoshop, because I'm a photographer,
Yeah.
and years ago I was working on an image of Tony Braxton
Mhm.
for one of the LA publications. It could have been Variety. I don't
Mhm.
remember. But they sent me the image and they wanted so much work done on it. And I had
Mm.
only a few hours. They wanted the boobs bigger,
Mhm. Of course.
the face thinner, the legs longer.
Mhm.
They wanted to lift up the skirt a little, show more,
Mhm. Mhm.
and even out the skin tone and all the basic, I call it the basics, but we're like raising the cheekbones, thinning
Right.
the face, thinning the nose,
Yeah.
enlarging the eyes, making the hair fuller, making the
Uh-huh.
boobs bigger, arms thinner,
Yeah.
legs longer, waist tighter. It was like a lot of work.
Yeah.
And then that goes into the magazine.
Right.
And then women look at that
Mhm.
and say, oh, I need to do
To look like
better.
that. Mhm.
But what you're looking at isn't real.
Even Tony Braxton doesn't look like that, right?
Even she doesn't look like that. And
Yeah.
by the way, that is after hair and makeup,
Mhm.
styling, and a professional photo shoot.
Exactly. And perfect lighting, right?
And perfect lighting,
Yeah.
yes. And a whole
Yeah.
team behind her, I'm sure, to get her ready for that
I'm
shoot.
sure.
And still, it went through a massive amount of
Right.
Photoshop.
Still not good enough.
It's still not good enough.
Still not good enough. Have you, I'm sure you see, do you remember the Dove campaign that, I mean, it's been a long time that came out and they showed, it was like a time lapse of that, of like, it wasn't Tony Braxton, but
Oh,
of a Photoshop, how a model's image was photoshopped from
I
like the
did not see
shoot
that.
to a billboard. Do you remember that
No, I never
campaign?
saw that. I'm gonna look that
Oh,
up.
I'll have to find it and send it to you.
I would
Maybe
love
you
to
can
see.
put the link in the show notes or something for this.
Yes,
It's pretty like eye-opening. Yeah, it's
really. Yeah,
yeah, I mean,
because
and
nobody
you just
looks
got to
like
model.
that.
What's that? I
Because
know that's the thing. Like we don't realize, right? That the models don't even look like that, right? Like Kate Moss for us Gen Xers. Kate Moss didn't even look like that.
yeah, yeah. I mean,
You know,
it's kind of scary.
it's
And then
very
you have,
scary.
generations of women just
Hmm.
self-loathing,
Yeah,
which
y-
makes
y-
them prime candidates for abuse.
right. And self-abuse too, right? Eating disorders,
The ultimate
cutting, like all of.
abuse is self-abuse. Yeah, for sure.
Mm-hmm. Right. Right. Exactly.
Well,
Exactly. Yeah, I know. It's so scary. And like, and now people can do it just on their phones. Right? Like now we can edit our own images, right?
yes.
And so I think about like teenagers and they compare themselves, right?
Yeah.
And it's not even in like some glossy magazine now. Now it's their friends
Yeah.
or it's, I mean,
Yeah.
and it's not just girls. Like I had to talk to my son when he was like 11, he was like, I want to start lifting weights. I'm like, you can't. It's not, you're going to like damage your growth plates. And then you're going to have like one arm like this, you know? And he's like showing me pictures. I'm like, okay, well, you're 11. You can't get muscles like that. Those are
Right.
photoshopped or whatever. He's like,
Right.
what's Photoshop? But you know, right.
Right.
I'm like, so our boys have this too, right? They have these standards too. It's
Yeah.
crazy.
I was just talking the other day about the men and how women, the whole feminist movement and
Hmm.
being equal and doing girl stuff.
Hmm.
And then navigating not only into a man's world, but
Hmm.
now switching back into a more feminine
Yeah.
world and realizing like the men also have been highly programmed
Oh yeah.
and
Oh yeah.
they should be more protectors instead of predators.
Hmm.
And that predatory program is massive. Yeah, and so guiding them too, like while the female finds her center, the
Hmm.
men to find their center and bring in a lot more compassion and kindness
Hmm.
and protection of
And
themselves
support.
as well because
Right.
men just
Yeah.
run over the coals.
And support, because I think I always like to think of it as like support, because I think sometimes men think protection is like cocooning. And then, I don't think women need the cocooning. They just need the support. They need the allyship of
The
men.
ally, yeah, that's a great way to
That's
put
what
it.
they need. Right. But I also think that I think a lot of men want to do that, honestly. I just think they don't know how, because they've not been taught, and there's no models for that in
Yeah,
our society, right? I think
yeah, there's
probably most men want to do that actually. They
that's so
just don't
nice to hear.
know. Well, I do. I mean, I genuinely, beside my cynicism aside of current events, I
Right?
do think that most men who are in our everyday lives are good people. You
Yeah.
know, I think that we get focused on the negative because, like we were talking about, like with the faces, like that's what gets news, right? That's what we hear about. And not that we shouldn't hear about that, but
Yes.
there's no balance to that, right?
There's no
We don't
balance.
hear about all the amazing men who are out there supporting women and supporting kids and doing good things in the world. We don't hear about that,
This is true. This is true.
right? And
Yes.
there's more of those than the bad ones.
Yeah, I mean, otherwise we would be in flames.
Exactly. Exactly.
Yeah,
So, yeah.
absolutely. Yeah, that's true.
Yeah. Mm. Yeah. I mean, this is what I tell myself so I can sleep at night. No,
Right?
I'm joking. No, I do genuinely believe it, because I look at the men that are in my life.
Yeah.
I'm like, and I look at the men that are in my girlfriend's lives. I'm like, these are good men. These are
Good man.
good people.
I
And
love that.
they just don't, they want so much to do the right thing. And I think a lot of times they don't know how to. That doesn't mean they go do the wrong thing. They just don't always know how
Right.
to be an ally to the women in their lives, because they don't have a model and nobody's talking to them about how to do it.
Right. And I think a lot of women, maybe, I don't know how many actually,
Yeah,
but many, um, are not interested. They're like, ugh, men, you know, ugh.
yeah,
Um,
because of their experiences,
because of their trauma.
Mhm. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
And so that leaves the men kind of lost.
right,
Like,
right.
what do I do? Like, I'm here to support and do
Mhm.
these things, but to who? Because nobody's there.
Right,
I
right.
heard
Well,
somebody else talking about that actually. He was running a men's group and he said we have like the younger generation of boys who don't have like that purpose
mhm.
that generations before they had because women have their own jobs and they're doing their own
Right.
thing and they don't need it as much, which I don't actually believe is true. I
Mhm.
think that's the communication out there,
Yeah,
but I don't think it's a real communication because I think that they do need each other.
I think so too. And what was the men's purpose of the generations before, going to war,
Right.
like being the sole breadwinner, like none of that was healthy for them,
Right.
right? So maybe there was a purpose, but it really didn't serve anybody well. So I think that they will find a purpose. It's just going to look different than it's ever looked before. That's not
Agreed.
necessarily a bad thing. And what I see, here's what I do see with like millennial men and Gen Z men is I do see a lot more partnership with their partners, spouses, whatever those relationships look like. I do see a lot more of that than I see with Gen Xers and before.
That's
You
good.
know, not everybody, of course, and a lot of that also has to do with socioeconomic privilege for sure.
Right.
100%, that makes a huge difference. But I do see that, it's really involved parenting on both sides. And it's not like, well, I'll watch the kids so you can go out with your girlfriends. It's like, no, I am a parent too, and I want to be actively involved in this parenting. And, so like, I mean, because I had my kids later and my kids are 6 years apart. So I have a 14-year-old and I have an 8-year-old. So I'm really like the grandma in my 8-year-old school. Like I feel
Oh,
like that sometimes. But I see a lot of parents who are a lot younger than me, right? And I see
yeah.
so many dads like at PTA meetings and coming to chaperone events and just so different and
That's
just
nice.
gladly there. Yes, it's so nice. And it's not because their wife couldn't be there or
Right.
whatever, it's because they want to be there because
That's
they're parenting.
crucial.
It's crucial. It's such
Yeah.
a different mindset, right? Such a
Yeah.
different mindset. And
That's
it's
beautiful.
so refreshing.
That
Yeah,
is
it
refreshing.
is.
It's nice to hear, actually.
Mm-hmm.
It's
Yeah.
nice to know that that's happening out there.
Yes. Yes. It is. It is. And also again, what great modeling for those kids, right? And so even if their dad can't be there, but they're growing up seeing that, hey, this is something dads do. And it's perfectly acceptable and it's not weird. It's not like there's one dad who shows up one time a year. Like
Right.
it's a regular thing.
They're
And that's
there
part
because
of
they
being a
want to be
parenting.
there.
Right. Yeah, it's
Yeah, that's
beautiful.
nice.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So there's
giving
hope. There's hope.
there's hope. There's
There's
hope.
hope.
We're not
Yeah.
gonna we're not
Hopefully, if we can make it through this little, period, whatever is happening right
right.
now.
Life is short. I was gonna say they're not gonna get die. But then I was like, oh yeah, no wait, we're all
We're
going
all gonna die,
we're all
but
gonna die eventually. So yeah,
eventually,
we're
yeah.
none of us are getting out of here alive.
No. Yeah.
But we're gonna enjoy it while we're here.
Yes, we have to. You either laugh or you cry, right? So let's laugh.
Let's
That's
laugh.
what I say.
Let's laugh until we cry.
I mean, after the last 6 months, I'm just like, oh my God, I'm not crying anymore. I gotta find the laughter.
It's been a rough 6 months for me too.
Yeah,
Just a little crazy.
just a
Um,
little bit.
the hurricanes.
Hmm.
That was
Yes,
intense.
intense stuff. Yes,
Yeah, I'm on Treasure Island, so that
yeah,
was real for us.
yeah,
And we stayed, which was kind
yeah.
of intense
We
too.
did too. Well, we
We
didn't
stayed,
stay for Milton, but we stayed for Helene. So
yeah. Well, that was the rough one, I feel
that
like.
was the rough one. Yeah, it was. Yeah, it was
Yeah.
rough for us too. It was rough for us too.
I thought about all of the things that everybody has lost. I mean, I was walking through the heaps. I don't know where
Yeah,
exactly you live, but out here it was just,
yeah,
piles of trash.
right, right.
And seeing all everybody's pictures
Hmm.
that just got destroyed. Their computers, their
Yeah.
everything. Yeah.
Um, we lived in Maximo, Moorings, so um, we live close to the beach. So we got flooding, but not like on the beaches. And I was so lucky that I was able to salvage my pictures. I remember drying them out. Like yeah. So, because I was the thing I was and always am the most worried about. Pictures are very, very important to me. Very important to me. I went to the, girl boss thing on Saturday,
Oh yeah.
And Tiffany was laughing at me. She's like, Grace, you get the award for bringing the most people to the photo booth. And I was like, I love it because I love pictures. I love those memories. And I don't know, I always have. I always have. So,
Me
and
too.
because of my age, I have a lot of pictures that are like from actual film. Like if they
Yes,
get destroyed, they're gone. They're
they're
just
gone.
gone, you know?
Yeah.
So that was like the
Nothing.
first thing when we got back in our house, I grabbed and I just started like drying them out. I think I lost a few, but most of them I was able
You
to
were
get.
able to salvage. Nice.
Hmm.
And going back to AI, now if any are damaged, you can just throw them in the AI photo generator and they'll fix it.
Really
Yes.
interesting. Yeah, but where is that all stored and who has access
Oh.
to it after
Oh
that?
yeah. It's
Yeah,
out there.
it's out there,
Yeah.
you know? I know.
But spiritually speaking, it's out there anyway because we are um like we have this body, but then we also have a negative body
Mm,
in our light body,
right,
which is basically a negative, the same thing.
right, right.
And all the information is held there. So I don't
Yeah,
know. I'm not so worried about my image being duplicated. I'm
yeah,
like, oh, what are you going to do with it? Go ahead. Like, I really,
yeah,
I don't. That doesn't bother me so much
mm,
unless you're going to use it to manipulate somebody I care about.
right, right.
That would be problematic. But I mean, it's just a body.
Well, they can take your head and put it on another body. You're like, go ahead. I love it. Go for it.
Go for it. I don't know why, you know, I feel like the AI generated, if you're going to go that route, the AI generated faces and the AI generated bodies are probably more what you're attracted to anyway.
True. That's a good point. Yeah, that's a good
Like
point.
why would you
Yeah.
bother?
I think I'm just super paranoid about it because when we lived in London for a while and then we traveled in Europe and people were always taking pictures of my kids,
Right.
always. And it freaked me out
That's
so
weird.
much. It's creepy. And I would like, I mean, I didn't care what language they spoke. I'd be like, you have to delete those pictures. I would just be like crazily make them delete it and show me on their phone that they were deleted.
Right.
'Cause it just, yeah, it's just creepy. I'm
Yeah,
like,
that's creepy. Like having strangers take pictures of you is very creepy because you're
yeah,
like, what are you doing?
right. And
Yeah,
children, taking pictures of your children,
that's fucked up. You don't want to go there.
fucked up. No, 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 no.
Um, yeah, that's scary actually.
Yeah, it's really
I haven't
scary.
experienced that at all. I was going to say years ago, I took a trip to Israel
Hmm.
and I went to, I guess it's the Four Corners, I think it's called,
Hmm.
where there's four um, countries
Yeah,
that share that corner.
right.
So it's like you can stand on this spot and you're in four
Four
countries
different
at the same
countries. Yeah.
time. Yeah. But there was a woman there on the side of the road, and I had brought my camera, and she was selling vegetables, and I just thought it was cool. She was just sitting with her babushka,
Yeah.
with her basket of vegetables,
Yeah.
and I thought it was a cool shot. So I went to take a picture, and she just put a picture
Yeah.
up,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
and everybody started yelling at me. I didn't realize they were yelling at me at first because I was a dumb American.
Yeah.
But eventually I figured it out, and I was schooled that they don't like their
Hmm.
images taken
Right.
at all for anything. Like they
Right.
don't believe in pictures, they don't take pictures, they
Yeah.
don't do that at all because they feel like it captures a piece of their soul
Yeah.
and keeps them stuck. And I kind of thought that was interesting because a photo is a capturing of a
Hmm.
moment.
Right.
And maybe they didn't want to capture any moments. I don't know.
Right. I mean,
Yeah.
just think about even the language we use around photography, right? Shooting, taking,
Yes.
capturing.
Yes.
It's all like really aggressive,
That is
isn't
very
it?
aggressive.
Hmm.
Let's come up with new words, Grace.
I know how I've tried to think about that. I'm like, how else do you like I've like really thought about that. I'm like, how else like make a picture, but I feel like if you say, "Can I make your picture?" people think more like a drawing or a painting,
Right.
you know?
Yeah.
I don't know. Yeah. Very interesting.
It is very interesting. When COVID happened, and I was still in LA at the time, I did something called drive-by shootings. So I got in my car with my lens and I
Yeah.
drove in front of people's houses and I did portraits
Yeah.
of just them sitting on their porches,
Yeah.
because I could still
Right.
be in my car. It was
Right.
fun, but it was just funny because I'm going to drive by and shoot you.
Right.
And I didn't have any other way to say it.
I know, right? Exactly. And especially in LA,
Yes.
that's like, right. Yeah.
Drive-by shootings. It was kind of funny.
It is funny because it's like that play on words, but yeah. How, no, that's what I mean. Like, how else do you say it?
I don't know. We could ask AI to come up with something.
Hilarious. I would love to see what AI comes up with.
I'm going to do that.
Let me
I'll put
know.
it in the
Let me
notes.
know what it comes up with.
That's really funny. Yeah, the language that we have is really
hmm
interesting.
That's so interesting. I mean, even things like rule of thumb. People don't often think about that. Do you know where that phrase comes from?
Say it again.
Rule of thumb.
Oh, no.
Okay, so I don't remember the exact dates, but in England, there was a law that could beat your wife with a stick as long as it was no bigger round than your thumb, and that was the rule of thumb, right? So like I never ever say rule of thumb ever. Ever since I learned that, I'm not saying
Wow.
that ever anymore.
Yeah, I love this topic. What other sayings do you have that
I
have
mean,
like,
so many. I saw, where's that post? I gotta find it. Somebody posted, or I don't know. I saw a post that came across my feed today about like things that were connected to racism that we don't even know about, like corporal punishment, which someone makes sense, but you don't think about it, right?
right?
40-hour work week, sleep training.
What's the
I don't know. There were a
40-hour
couple,
work week?
I guess it was from, I didn't really get to read it all. I don't know. And now now I'll probably never find it, right? And
Sleep
then
training?
sleep training, apparently.
Wow.
I know, like I know, we just don't think about the origin. I think this is what I mean when I talk about like how we communicate our whole lives, right? From day one, from the second we're born, but don't always, we often don't think about it. We don't have a lot of intention behind it. And then once we start putting just a little bit of intention, it just shifts everything,
Hmm.
everything. So if we just think about word origin, right? Or like we're talking about the photography, shooting somebody. Well, you're not really going to kill them. You're not really you're not using a gun. You're using a camera. Where
Yeah,
did that come from? Why did that term get associated with pictures?
that's
It's
interesting.
such an interest, right? And
Yeah,
then like the rule of thumb, like a lot of our language is very kind of patriarchal, very racist, right? And I'm not saying, oh, we have to like change all our language, but it's just interesting to think about, right? So that there's some intention. And maybe we do want to change it based on who you're speaking to, right?
yes. And I'm thinking about the book by Florence Scovel Sheen.
Mm-hmm.
Do you know this book?
Mm-mm. I don't think so. Mm. What a
Your
great
word
title.
is your wand,
Right.
about the words that you use. So I feel like we do need to change some of these words
Mm-hmm.
because the meanings behind them are, in a sense, the programming
Yeah.
and the spell casting. That's what
Right.
her book is about,
Mm.
casting spells. So everything that you say, every word is a vibration
Oh, wow.
that carries meaning and it goes out and ripples into the ether, creating,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Yeah.
Every word that you say, it's the creative process. And if you look, I think, um, in Genesis, the
Mhm.
beginning of Genesis, that God spoke the word, and then the word became,
Right.
right? It's the
Wow.
the essence of the words that you use are
Mhm.
creating our reality. So if we're
Right.
using words like, "Oh, I'm going to come over and shoot you," and do a drive-by shooting, and then we're watching movies at night that are so violent
Yeah,
and becoming sensitized to all of it, and then it just keeps rippling out,
exactly. Yeah.
and then you don't even know that you're doing it anymore.
Right.
We're
Right.
wondering, how do we get here
Mhm.
from those simple words that
Mhm.
we don't remember the origin of,
Right.
because whether or not we
Right.
remember the origin, it's still there.
It's still there. Yeah,
And
exactly.
that ripple still comes out and still is
Mhm.
creating, whether you know
Mhm.
it or you don't know it is
Mhm.
kind of irrelevant.
Right.
It's like gravity, right? You can know about gravity or not, but you're still standing here and you're still going to fall if you jump out the window.
Right. Right. Right.
You might not know what it is, but it's still doing what it
It's
does.
saying, yeah. Yeah. Oh, that sounds like a great book that I should read. Your word is your wand. Okay. I'm gonna check it out.
I'll drop it in the show notes.
Yes, I love it. Good.
Yeah, that's a fun one, and I think you'll like it since
Mm,
this
it
is your.
sounds perfect too because I work with words all the time.
What is the biggest question that you always have with your people?
I
If
mean, the first thing that most people usually come to me with is how do I get rid of my anxiety with speaking in public? And that can be anything from speaking on a stage to going to a networking meeting to just speaking up in a boardroom. And I always tell them it's, the anxiety, we want to make the anxiety work for you. Anxiety can actually be a good thing because it motivates us. So the goal is never to get rid of it, but to learn how to manage it. And so for some people, that anxiety is literally debilitating. Like some people vomit because of it. Some people like it can be really bad, right? Obviously, those kinds of symptoms we do want to get rid of. But I still get nervous when I speak. Like it's okay. It's okay and it's normal. So that's the one thing I always want people to know. Which is how you manage it. That matters. So there's that. And then usually the second thing people come to me for is structure, like how I ramble, I lose my thoughts, like I can't keep on top of what I want to say. So we work a lot on structure. And that often also includes thinking about word choice, right? Because whenever you're speaking, no matter what the situation, you're going to have a limited amount of time. And because I work with such amazing women, high achieving women, really intelligent women, you know, they're really smart and they're usually experts and they have a lot of knowledge and they're also very giving and they want to share everything they know. But they want to share it all in one fell swoop. So, right? So we work on condensing down to like a core message, not taking everything they know, but like figuring out what is the one core message. That's what we always kind of start with. I call it your signature speech. What's a signature speech? What's the one thing that you really want people to know? And then we craft that and we craft it so that it can be condensed down to 15 minutes and expanded out to 60 minutes because those are usually it's usually 15, 30, 45, 60 typical time frames for speaking. And that way they're ready to go when somebody calls them and says, hey, I had last minute cancellation. Can you come speak? Like in 20 minutes.
Wow,
Or,
and then
right?
it's ready.
It's ready to go. And so you have that one in your back pocket always. And you have your slides and it's well rehearsed, right? Rehearsed, not necessarily memorized. If you need to memorize it, we can work on that. But usually you want it to just be rehearsed so you can be present in the moment and you can be present with your audience, right? Because the audiences are going to be different. Then we can craft other things based on needs. But once you get that signature one down, it gets so much easier. So that's usually the kind of core of what I do.
What's the first thing that you do to help somebody who has anxiety about speaking?
Great question. It's really mindset work. It's honestly what it is. So getting at the core of what are you worried about? So we like let's talk about worst case scenario, best case scenario, just a lot of just how are you going to manage that prior to. So we talk a lot about that prior to, and then in the moment. So, I mean, all kinds of little tips like literally put a rock in your pocket that you can rub.
Mm.
Like some people, some people will have specific stones that they want, but literally just something in your pocket. Like it's like the same kind of idea as a fidget, right?
Right.
Just
Yeah, like
something
a worry stone.
yeah, right. A worrisome, just something tactile. It's amazing. Like, and most of the time when I'm first working with clients, I'll tell them, well, they think I'm crazy. And they're like, a rock. I'm like, seriously, just you can go get a worry stone and get the beautiful rocks. And I definitely encourage that. I'm like, but if you don't want to invest in that yet, just go in your yard and find a rock and wash it off and put it in your pocket. I know it sounds ridiculous, you know? I'm like, and then the next time you're on a Zoom call, and I also always start people off easy. Like we're gonna start where you're comfortable. So we look for what's your comfort zone. So if it's a Zoom call, start on a Zoom call. People can't see what you're doing with your hands. Just rub that
Right.
rock and see how it makes you feel, you know?
Right, right.
Or I had one client who was just like, I always get really hot on my Zoom calls. I was like, okay, well, put a fan behind your computer screen. I can do that. I'm like, yeah, you can do that. So,
Aw.
I mean, I love it because a lot of times it is just validation, even like we were talking about before, and just knowing you're not alone, right? That other people deal with these things. And it's also so individualized, which I really like too. Like everybody sort of has their own thing, and then I get to see them go out and do their thing, and it's so fun and exciting. And again, it's not that they're not going to be nervous; they're still going to be nervous, but they're going to see how they can work through that, and then they're going to feel more confident, and then they're going to do it again, right? And then they're going to feel more confident that they're going to do it again. I know, right? It's awesome. I love it. It's so fun, and I feel like a little proud mama. You know? Yeah,
Yes, I was gonna
yeah,
say I just had this vision of like the baby birds leaving the nest and
hmm
flying,
yeah. No, it's totally like
right?
that. It's
And
totally
like
like that.
you're watching your baby birds go fly for the
Hmm
first time. You're like, yes, you can
Yes,
do it.
yes. And then then I get to be at events with them too. Like a few weeks ago, I was at this awards event and my client and I were both getting an award. And it was so exciting. And I was so proud of her, because that was it's just amazing and it's fun. And I also get to learn so much because I get to learn about people, which I love, and I get to learn about what they do and I get to learn from them. Like that's a brilliant thing that I didn't even anticipate because as I'm helping them with their speeches, I get to learn from them, right? And
Right.
since also an academic, I love that piece of it. I'm just a lifelong learner. So yeah,
Yeah,
it's just,
me too.
yeah,
I love learning.
right.
That's always fascinating for me. Like, how
Yes.
did you get here?
Yeah.
What's your journey been like?
Well, and let me tell you, if you had asked me when I was a kid if this is what I would have been doing, I'd have said no because I was so painfully shy. I would run to my room and hide if our front doorbell rang. It's crazy, right? So I can also
Wow.
really relate to my clients who have that anxiety. And I'm an extroverted person. I really love being around people, but you know, I just I took a while to come out of my shell. So,
That's
um,
amazing.
right?
Yes.
Yeah, and I really want people to know that because I think a lot of times people see, when they see other women in particular who are comfortable with public speaking or speaking up, think, oh, she's just born like that, or she's always been confident. No, confidence is absolutely a learnable skill. 100% is.
Wow.
That's the big secret. Yeah, but it's not. I don't want it to be a secret. Like,
Right?
yeah,
So, how much of that learning is just getting up there and
hmm
practicing,
a lot, a lot.
right?
It's experiential, right? And that's the piece people. That's the part people don't want to hear, right? Because it's uncomfortable. That's you have to go through the discomfort of it.
You
It's
have to
no
get off the
different,
couch.
right? And it's no different than learning any other skill, right? It's like if you were a soccer player. It was hard when you first started to learn how to dribble the ball. It was awkward. right? Or a basketball player when you first started dribbling and you had to shoot how many baskets before you could finally make it, or a tennis player, or a photographer, like how many bad pictures did you take, right? It's the same thing. It's a skill, and skills take practice, and it's going to be uncomfortable and it's going to be awkward in the beginning. And you just have to know that.
You
So,
know,
okay.
I was a photographer for at least 10 years
Hmm.
before I could say confidently that I was a photographer
Right.
because
Yeah.
I had such um it's not FOMO, it's the other one. What's the other one? Like
Perfectionist, imposter
imposter
syndrome.
syndrome.
Yeah.
I was like, am I? Am I mean, I have a
Right.
camera, but everybody likes what I do, but
Right.
and it took a long time. And people would ask me, "Are you the photographer?" And I'd like shut down, put the camera up in front of
Right.
my. I was just completely hiding it. And I think it's kind of interesting
Uh-huh.
because it's that same kind of thing. It
Same.
took me a while to actually say it and
Right.
feel it in my body, like, oh, yes, I am a photographer.
Mhm.
I am
Right.
the photographer today for you.
Right. And you know what? And the way you worded that is so important. The I am statement. I am whatever. I am confident. I
Yeah.
am a photographer. I am a speaker. I am knowledgeable. I am worthy of being on this stage. I am worthy of speaking up, whatever. Those statements are so important. And you have to say it just like that. I am whatever, period. Just like that.
I love that. Say it again, Grace. Do
Right?
it again. Yeah,
I
that's
am.
so
I
wonderful.
am. And then fill in your blank, period. That's it. Get some whiteboard markers and you write it on your mirror. I am. And then you look at yourself and you say it.
Did you just say whiteboard markers on the mirror?
Yeah, because they can wipe right off.
Oh
Yeah,
my God. If that's
yeah.
not the most brilliant thing I've heard this week, I always reserved lipstick for the mirror. That
Oh,
is
well, you
a
can do
hot
lipstick
mess.
too. Yeah, but it's messy and it's more expensive. So get some whiteboard markers. Yeah,
That's great. I'm going to do
yeah. They just clean with
that.
vinegar, actually. You don't even have to get fancy cleaner.
That's amazing. I love
Yeah,
that.
yeah.
Write your I am statements on your mirror.
Mm-hmm. So if you have a round mirror, you can write them in a little circle, frame your face. Yeah, it's super powerful.
Fancy.
Mm. I
I
work
love
with a gymnast who has really bad performance anxiety. So that's what we do before her meets. She writes them all around her mirror.
self communication. What we
What?
say
Ugh,
to ourselves.
it matters more than what other people say to us. It really does. It really does. Yeah. Right? You know that.
Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's so powerful.
It's really powerful. It makes a huge difference. It really does. Yeah. So,
I'm just feeling that as a package of information. And actually, something you said earlier was like when you're coaching somebody in speaking and they just want to say everything all
hmm
at once, and you have to break it down and package it and
hmm
create the journey out of it.
right.
And I was just thinking, couldn't we just do it with look? Zzz.
Well,
Got it?
if we had those neurotransmitters, maybe. Right.
Yeah. Yes, right?
Yeah.
Like dolphin communication would
There
just
you
look
go.
at each other with like one eye and be like,
I
she's got
mean,
all of it.
moms do it with their kids, so
They do. They do. That's funny. Yeah, rewriting that self-talk on the mirror. I love that.
it sounds super again, it sounds so cheesy, but it's really effective. It's amazing how effective it is. Just rewiring your brain.
Yeah,
Like it sounds dumb, it sounds cliche, but it works.
awesome. Well, is there anything else that you want to say before we wrap up our time together. We've gone almost 2 hours,
2 hours. I know. I feel like I could talk to you all day.
right?
I know. No, I just want to say thank you so much for having me and that this was so much fun. And I do feel like I could speak with you all day long and I just enjoyed it so much. So thank you. I this summer I'm gonna be mapping out my own podcast, and I would love to have you on there as
Thank
well.
you. I would love
Yeah,
that.
yeah, absolutely. All right, but thank you again so much, Kristen. I really appreciate it. It was fun.
Yes, thank you so much. It was so
Yeah.
fun hanging out with you and getting to know
You
you a little bit
yeah,
more
you too. You too.
because I
And
want to see you at
let's do it in
Girl.
person.
Agreed. Have a good day.
You too. Bye.
Bye.